Good. All right. Hello, everyone. Today, Douglas will be speaking to us about the personal statement and possibly interviews if you would like to. So take it away, Doug.
I never agreed to interviews, just to put that out there. But we can see what happens. All right. Well, welcome everyone that's here and anyone who watches this video later. We're going to be discussing, what you need to do to start that process to put together your personal statement. What are kind of the ideas, the things that you need to be looking at adding? What are you trying to say about yourself in a personal statement? Pretty much organizational. We're going to talk about a handful of these different things, and then I hope a bunch of you have questions um, so that I can kind of answer those specifically, maybe those that are working currently on their personal statement, and I can give you some thoughts based off of my previous help with many of students who have gotten in and haven't gotten in to medical school, dental, pharmacy, PA, all that kind of fun stuff. So really quick, I just want to ask a question of everybody else, just to kind of have this be a little bit more discussion based and not just me preaching to everyone. But can someone tell me what the reason for a personal statement is for your medical school application?
To show who you are outside of academics.
Okay. So obviously you have your transcript that shows the different classes you've taken, the grades you received. You have an MCAT score that shows you kind of your ability to take a standardized test. And so, yeah, a personal statement gives you an opportunity to expand more on your non-academic capabilities as well. Anyone else want to add on to that? Kelton, Hannah, Skylar, Sheena, if you've arrived.
Sheena has not, but Cody has.
Oh, or Cody. Show us that nice tan from Cabo. Nobody else knows why. Oh, Kelton's going to tell us.
Oh, I was just going to say kind of what Colton was saying, to kind of give your brand out there, to kind of show your uniqueness, I guess.
Absolutely. So exactly, this allows you to kind of share who you are. Like, I like how you said that brand, because that's really what you're trying to do. One thing you have to realize when an admissions officer or someone on the admission committee is looking at applications, they have to look at hundreds of applications. They, eventually it's thousands of applications, but those kind of get parsed down, and they split them up between different groups and whatnot. So they're looking at probably 50 to 100 plus applications. And so one thing you're trying to do on your application is find ways to stand out, and a personal statement is a great way to do that. I don't know, probably none of you have gone house hunting. You're all pretty young, but as when I go house hunting with my wife, we would give like unique names to each house based off something unique about that house. And so when we would be done house, we go out with our realtor for an evening. We come back after we see maybe 10 or so homes. We would start talking about homes, and we wouldn't say, oh, that home on, Clover Street or the Boulevard or whatnot. We would say, oh, that home with the green cabinets, or that home with the yada yada. So we had like an identifier for each home. And usually that identifier was either something that was bad or something that was good. And a lot of the times on your personal statement, that how you talk about yourself in that personal statement can often be your identifier. So you don't want your personal statement to sound like everyone else's personal statement, or you don't get an identifier. You don't get something that helps you stand out, so that when an applicant or admissions officer is reading through all these applications, they're not just putting you in a pile of just like everybody else. You want something in there that's unique about you, that stands out, that go, oh, I love that person that saved 1,000 orphans from a burning fire and down the street. You want something, and obviously it doesn't have to be something that big, but you want something unique, something specific that identifies who you are, even though they may not remember who your name is. But when they're gathering together in a big committee and they're talking about applications, they'll be like, oh, who's that South American guy? The guy kept going back to Peru and doing all that stuff. Who's that? What was his name? And someone's going to pull up the name. But you have this identifier of who you are. And like I said, one good way of doing that is your personal statement. So I really like that idea that you brought up, Kelton, of creating your brand. All right, anyone other comments before I jump in to expand more on that? Nobody there? Colin has anything to say?
Cody asked, how long is it supposed to be?
So I believe it's 5,000 characters. It's either that, like all of them are a little bit different, so always get them mixed up, but it's around 5,000 characters, which a character is every letter, every space, every period, every apostrophe, anything like that is a character. And so what that boils down to is actually about a page and a half.
The spaces.
What's that? And yeah. So sometimes you may be wanting to use extra spaces to get to that character limit. Other times you're like, crap, I've got to pare this down so I can fit it in. Most of our students, and hopefully all of you watching this video, watching right now, you want to be on that other end. You want to be like, oh my gosh, I need to pare this down. This is too long. Because if you're doing that, that means you're interesting enough that you can't fit it into a page and a half, right? You've got to figure out, oh my gosh, how am I doing this? You shouldn't be in this situation where you're like, holy cow, I'm only at like 3,000 characters and I'm running a blank on what else I should put in here. And you should always, this is something I was going to talk about later, but since you brought this up, Cody, you should always fill the amount of characters. It doesn't have to be exactly 5,000, but it should definitely be somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000. And the reason why, if you cut yourself short, if you're only doing 3,000 characters or 3,500 characters or even 4,000 characters, what you're telling the admissions officer immediately off the bat, because on the application, it says exactly how many characters you used. You're telling them you're not interesting enough that you can't write 5,000 characters about yourself. So even without them reading it, you could have the best, one-page personal statement, but if it isn't fulfilling a page and a half or that 5,000 characters, you're initially telling them, I'm not interesting enough. I don't know, I don't have enough about me to actually show that I should be getting into medical school. So you should be using every character you can in that, because this is your chance to sell yourself, to sell that brand, like Kellen said, to be able to talk to that, to tell that admissions officer why they should pick you, why you have what it takes to get into medical school. Great questions. Any other questions? All right. So now, when it comes to writing a personal statement, there are many different ways you can go about it. If you want, you can always email me. I have about example of like 7 or 8 examples of previous students who've gotten into med school and then have one bad example. So you can see different variations of what a personal statement looks like. Some people like to do it chronologically. They start from when they were a child, then a teenager, then they're in college, then they're about to apply to medical school, right? And that's a good fit for them. That tells them their story. Others, they have like a really unique story that they had that maybe happened when they were in college. I have one student who I thought wrote a really, really great personal statement, and it was all based on this one experience he had. And he tied that experience to why he wanted to be a physician, why he wanted to go into medical school and all that. But literally, he only talked about this one experience. And I thought it was a really great personal statement, but it kind of went a little bit out of the norm of like a chronological field that a lot of people feel safe doing. Not say safe, but it's a common one to do, and it's very effective as well. So I'm not saying don't do chronological, because we have plenty of students who do that and are in medical school now. We have people that focus maybe more on, maybe not an experience, but on the things that they did to prepare themselves for medical school, or what it was the aha moment that said they want to go into medicine. And so there's a lot of different ways to get around it. But what I try to tell students is, I found this picture about 4 years ago, and I'm going to share my screen here with everybody. And this is from University of Minnesota. And I saw this, and this I felt was a really great way to kind of figure out, how should I structure my personal statement? What should be in my personal statement? And they broke it down to these 4 categories. The first one is motivation, right? That whole idea of, why do I want to be a physician? What has happened in my life? What are the things that are going on in my life, or have happened in my life, that have driven me to want to become a doctor? The next is fit. How am I a good fit to be a physician? Is it because I'm caring? Is it because I'm empathetic? Is it because I'm knowledgeable? What type of things, what type of characteristics do you have that have you as a good fit? Next is capacity. Capacity is, what have you done, right? So have you shadowed physicians? Have you been volunteering? Have you done all these things? You don't have to say everything you've done, but you want to hit on some of the things you have done to prepare yourself to give you that capacity to be a physician. And the fourth one, which I feel like gets overlooked the most, is vision. I think most of you know those first 3 pretty well, that when you've been thinking about writing a personal statement or putting together, you probably, maybe even unconsciously kind of knew these were the things you had to talk about. But probably a lot of you didn't know about, or haven't thought about, putting a vision. And so you're probably wondering, what's a vision? So your vision is where you see yourself as a physician. And so what I want to do really quick to kind of give you an example of this, I want to do a quick activity with you guys. So every one of you, take a deep breath. After you take that deep breath, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think of, from 10 years from now, where are you? Where do you see yourself? Right? So 10 years from now, hopefully that's enough time that you've gone through medical school, you've gone through your residency program. Maybe if you're going on to be a neurosurgeon or something like that, we may need to say 14 years from now. So let's actually do that. We'll say 15 years from now. That's safe. Everyone at that point should have done their 4 years in medical school and whatever residency program. So where do you see yourself 15 years from now? Picture yourself where you're at. What type of physician are you? Okay. Not only what type of physician are you, what type of, where are you practicing as a physician? Are you in a clinic? Are you in a hospital system? Are you in a large medical system? Are you in a VA? Are you working for the armed services? Are you, what type, are you, maybe you're teaching at a medical school? What type of physician are you? Where are you at? Second, where are you in a small town? Are you in a medium-sized town? Are you in a big city? Are you in an urban area? Are you in a rural area? All right. I want you to picture in your mind exactly where you could see yourself 15 years from now as a physician. Okay. So take a second, think about that. And as you're thinking about that, this is what we're talking about: vision. What are your goals? Where do you see yourself? And so when you're writing this in a personal statement, you're probably not saying, oh, I'm going to be on the 2nd floor of this building in Denver, Colorado, working as an enterologist. right? You're probably not that specific when you're talking about it in your personal statement. But in your personal statement, you want to show that you know kind of what you want to achieve. You know why you want to be a physician. So you want to say something to the effect of, you know, as I look at all the things that I've done and accomplished, I'm excited moving forward as I prepare myself for medical school, as I prepare myself to be a physician working in a rural area, helping the people of rural America, right? That could be that vision. You're not as specific as I asked you to say, right, think about right now. But if you don't know where you're at kind of specifically in 15 years, and maybe that's not where you end up, but you want to be able to show that reader, that admissions officer, as they're reading through and finishing up your personal statement, you want to be able to show them that your commitment is so strong to this that you can already see yourself doing this job. You see yourself as a physician doing serving the people, being a practitioner of medicine. You want to show that. And what that does is that shows, like I said, not only that you're prepared and you're thinking about this, but that you're confident that this is who you are. This is what you want to be. This is the 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 type of career that you want in your life.
Just real quick, I have two questions.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
Actually, do you want to take questions now or at the end?
Yeah, let's do some questions now, because usually questions lead into other things that I want to say. So let's ask some questions now.
Okay, so I have heard that you should avoid discussing like an interest or that what specialty or something like that you want to go into. Is it a good idea then? Because I know a lot of us have a good idea of what we want to go into, and if not, like a pretty general idea, but is it smart to talk about specific specialties?
So, like I was saying, you don't want to be super specific that they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to get to med school and realize that being an orthopedic surgeon isn't what they think it's going to be, right? But what you want to do is you want to show them that vision. So if let's say you want to be an orthopedic surgeon, you can talk about how, as a physician, you see yourself as a surgeon working in orthopedics, and that but in a sense that you're also open to the idea of just being a physician. So you don't want to pigeonhole yourself, right? Because if you talk to the majority of people of what type of physician they want to be before they enter medical school, and what type of physician they want to be when they're applying to residency, it's very different. Because until you're actually doing your clinical rotations and experiencing what it's like, that's the case. So really, like I said, what you're trying to do is not nail down that, oh, I'm going to be a heart surgeon. My daddy was a heart surgeon. My grandpa was a heart surgeon. I'm going to be a heart surgeon. That's coming off cocky, right? So you have to find that thin line of cocky and confident. Confident is incorporating your experiences, saying, based off my experiences, based off what I've seen, I see myself doing this type of medicine. And this is how I know, this is what I hope to be able to contribute to the area of medicine. So the idea is letting him know what your interest is, but not pigeonholing yourself to it, that, like I said, that you sound cocky, or that they're going to be in for a rude awakening if they don't get that. Right? You can say, let's say if you want to be a heart surgeon, you can say, I really like the idea of cardiology, and I could see myself going into the field and being a cardiologist and helping people out with heart disease, which is the #1 killer in America. That's not saying you're going to be a cardiologist. That's saying that that's something that's driving you, that's getting you into medical school, right?
Yeah.
Same with, like, if you want to be a pediatrician and you have a lot of experiences where you've worked with kids, you can say, my hope is that I can take all these experiences of my interactions with kids and be able to use that to help children with their medicine and be a pediatrician. That's not pigeonholing you into it. what it's doing is showing the realisticness of, hey, this is what I've done in my preparation to be a physician. And so I could see myself doing this as a physician.
Right.
Right. If you don't talk anything about, you know, anesthesiology, if you never shadowed an anesthesiologist and you're talking about how you want the most cush type of, or even maybe not even anesthesiology, maybe even like dermatology, right? I know Skylar's really interested in that. If she wasn't out shadowing a dermatologist and at the end saying, I want to be a physician, I love dermatology, it's going to be the best thing ever, right? That's where she can be like, you know, after shadowing, you know, I just forgot her name, Dr. Larson, I could see myself serving the community with their healthcare needs through, you know, their skin, or, you know, something of that effect, you know. So you want to make sure that you're not just stamping, I'm going to be this type of physician without any experience of what that type of physician is. That would look bad.
Okay, sounds good. My other question.
Yep.
I can't think of what the name of the category on that picture was, but it's the second one from the right.
Fit?
No.
Fit or capacity?
Capacity. So that's what you have done to kind of build your, I guess, build your brand, like Kelton was saying. Isn't that more what you talk about in your experiences than it would be in your personal statement? Or was that just kind of shaping the applicant as a whole, not necessarily just a personal statement?
Exactly. So, so your personal statement, then this is a good question because I was going to talk about this. So your personal statement and your experiences should not be like a complete overlap, right? That doesn't mean if it's in your experiences, you can't talk about it in a personal statement, right? But let's say one of your most meaningful experiences is that you engaged in undergraduate research. Well, you're going to talk a lot about that as one of your most meaningful experiences. You can bring that up in your personal statement, that is something like, you know, you could say something in effect of, you know, growing up, I always enjoyed the sciences, and I also always enjoyed helping people or interacting with people. And as I was looking at different careers, I noticed that the physician is the ultimate scientist that helps people. And I really noticed that when I engaged in my undergraduate research project. So you're not talking about all the ins and out of that research project, because you're going to do that in your actual application, but you can reference it because that might be part of this, who you are, part of this personal statement, right? So your personal statement, if you're going to talk about something really specific, it shouldn't be in your personal statement. I mean, in your experiences as something really big there as well, right? You want to use this opportunity to expand who your brand is, not overlap what your brand is. But like I said, it doesn't mean you can't talk about those things. You just don't need to go in as much depth because it's in your personal statement. And so to give you an example, Colin, of when you're trying to talk about your capacity, maybe something happens in your life and you decide, hey, I want to be a physician. Well, how do you know you have what it takes to be a physician? You're going to go shadow. You're going to go get a job in the healthcare field. You're going to go volunteer, right? You're going to do those things. So you may say something to the effect of, over the next 6 months, I decided to throw myself into this idea of what it takes to be a physician. I went and shadowed this, a anesthesiologist. I was able to get a job at the doctor's volunteer clinic where I was able to do, bring people in and check the things. Like, you're just hitting on these things. You're talking about those experiences more in depth on your experience list, but in your personal statement, you're showing that this is part of your progression to going to becoming a physician.
Got
that
it.
makes
Thank
sense?
you. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So I'll give you, so there's bad examples for personal statements, right? I so one of the worst examples I ever read, and you'll be happy to know this student is in medical school, but not because of that personal statement. He didn't get in his first time because he never reached out to anybody to look over his personal statement. And when he didn't get in the first time, he then came and talked to me, and he sent me his personal statement from the previous year. And I'm just glad he wasn't in my office, because it was the most horrific thing I've ever read. He did every cliche that you're not supposed to do. He, in no sudden words, said, "I want to be a doctor because my dad was a doctor," which is like the worst thing you can say in a personal statement. He didn't say in those exact terms, but he said it almost really close to that. Now, if your dad's a physician, that doesn't mean you can't put that in your personal statement, that that was something that was inspiring to you. But you don't say something to the effect of, "Well, my dad was a doctor, so I guess I gotta be a doctor," right? That doesn't show you're gonna be a good physician. That just shows you only saw one thing you could be, so that's what you decided to be, right? And then another thing that was said in this personal statement is, so when we was talking about his capacity, talking about the things that he'd done, he said, "As you can read in my experiences, I've accomplished these things." So he kept referencing his experiences in his personal statement. And what was bad about that is it made his whole personal statement choppy. It had no flow to it. It made the reader want to be like, "Okay, I need to put down this personal statement and I need to go read their experiences, because I don't know what the rest of this personal statement is going to be about, because he's referencing something in his experiences." Right? So he did some really horrific things. I went through, helped him revamp it. He did a really good personal statement and got into a really good medical school afterwards, because he was a great candidate. He just didn't know how to talk about himself. And I think that's what a lot of what was one of the hardest things about a personal statement, especially in kind of our culture. Our American culture is a lot about, you're supposed to be more humble, right? Um, Whether you like or dislike Donald Trump, a lot of people feel uneasy about Donald Trump because he's very much about um, how confident he is in himself, and how, kind of, and sometimes can be very arrogant in how he says things, right? And for a lot of people, that doesn't feel right, because in our culture, we're more about, you have to be a little bit more humble about yourself. You're not supposed to brag too much about yourself. And I think that's what happens a lot with putting down your personal statement. You're like, "Oh, if I say that, I'm being too braggy." And there are aspects of that, like we talked about before. You don't want to just come out and say, "I'm going to be an anesthesiologist," right? You want to lead up to, "This is a goal that I have, is to be an anesthesiologist," right? So you're showing your confidence, but that confidence comes from experiences that you've had, things that you've done, not from, "If I say it, I'll get it," right? I'm not just going to spout out something just because I'm confident. I'm going to share something with you based off of my experiences, my fit, my personality, my characteristics. Now that's why I'm confident, right? So that's, you know, that that's that hard line um, you have to kind of to weave, and to walk. I had one student, he did really amazing things, and I remember reading his personal statement and thinking, "I don't know if this guy is making these things up," because some of them sound it beyond belief. Like, he rode his bike across America, Forrest Gump style, um, to raise money for a charity. And I'm like, did he really? You know? And it was just because of how he came across saying it. He came across saying it as a fact more of than an experience that he had. And so when I talked with him about it, we softened it up to show that what he gained out of it, instead of that he did it. And so that's another way when you're writing about yourself, try to be more of explanatory about it and what you gained out of it, instead of I did this, and making it sound like, oh, you're God's gift to pre-meds, right? I saved those 1,000 orphans from that burning building. You don't say it like that. You say, there was this experience when I have an opportunity, and not opportunity, where I came across a burning building and there were people dying in there, and I had the opportunity to actually go and edit up, right? Obviously, these are hyperboles, but you want to talk about the experience, share the experience. You don't want to bullet point facts about this in your personal statement. That's not what your personal statement's a story about who you are. It's that brand Kelton talked about. I see there's chats. Are there questions in the chats?
No, nothing, no questions in the chat. I was just gonna say, hey, thank you, Kelton, for supplying us with that word.
Yes. All right. Where is Hannah? Is she in there? Or is she?
Yes, she's right in front of me.
All right. Because I'm about to go all Moana here in a second. So this is the last thing I'm going to talk about. And then if there's other questions, we can definitely hit this up. So another way to think of your personal statement is to think of the movie Moana. I assume most of you have seen Moana here, but for those that maybe haven't, or those who watch this video later, and it's maybe 10 years and Moana is kind of in the distant past, or however this comes up across, I'll just give a quick brief rundown. So Moana is a Pacific Islander, and she lives on her village on this island. And because something that happened thousands of years ago, these villagers don't leave their island. In a sense, the water is cursed because this individual stole this stone, and because of that, it cursed the land. It cursed the sea, and then eventually it was starting to curse the land. And Moana gets told this legend, this story by her grandmother, and kind of encourages her to go out to retrieve this stone and bring it back to where it's supposed to be, to kind of set the world back to how it's supposed to be. And so Moana disobeys her parents and goes on this great journey to find this stone and return it back, and essentially to become this heroine. Well, Moana gets so very close. She gets to the very point where she's about to ready to return the stone, and she fails. And not only she fails, she feels like she let her companion down at this point, and she's now drifting out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean all by herself, except for her little sidekick chicken that she has. And she's feeling horrible that why did she even go on this journey? She failed. She wasn't, in a sense, the chosen one to do this. And her grandmother that had told her this story that had passed away comes back kind of as a vision, as this manatee, and comes to her and kind of comforts her and tell her, it's okay that you failed. That's not a problem. And she said, and she encouraged her. She's like, but who are you? What did you learn, in a sense, from this? And as she's done talking with her grandmother, she gets this confidence back in her, and she sings this great song. It's the climax of the whole show, where she talks about, in this song, she sings about all the things that she did ever since she left her island, and all these things that she accomplished that were amazing. Even though she didn't return that stone to its rightful place, she accomplished all these things. And because she did all these things, she now exclaims in the end of the song, I am Moana. She now knows who she is because she went on this journey. She then goes on to actually complete the task, save the day, yada, 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 and becomes that heroine. But the most important part of that whole movie is that you find yourself as you go through the experiences in life, and that's who you are. And for some people, that's how you can write your personal statement. What are the experiences that have driven you to now be able to apply to medical school, right? And that's, for a lot of people, that's what they use. They use that chronological order of the things that they did. They had an experience in high school that triggered their thought, maybe I could be maybe I should go into medicine. They start realizing as they serve people, they have a very empathetic heart. They have charity. They love interacting with individuals. They love having that personal connection. As they start working in the healthcare field, or as they start getting experiences shadowing a physician and learning what it's really like, it reinvigorates that fire that, yes, being a physician is who I should be. And so by the end of your personal statement, you should be just like Moana. You should be declaring yourself. That's why I say that's that vision, right? You should be declaring, hey, I've done all these things. I am a great candidate for medical school. Not only medical school, I'm a great candidate for being a physician, because look at this journey I have gone on, and I'm right there. I'm right ready to return that stone, which is jumping into medical school. And so kind of think of that as Moana. I was going to try to show this clip, but I didn't know if Disney has that specific clip there ready available. But if you haven't seen that, it's a really powerful experience. I love watching it with my kids, because when we're watching it in the my car, they all scream all at once, "I am Moana," and you can feel that they understand that whole experience. And that's how you, like I said, that's how you guys should feel. You shouldn't feel at the end of this that, oh my gosh, this is so hard, I'm so defeated. Instead, you should be like, oh my gosh, look at the amazing things I've accomplished, in my undergrad, even maybe when I was in high school. Look at all these amazing things that I have done. I'm a different person than when I started off on this journey. And you know what? I am ready to be a physician. I have the skills, I have the capacity, I have the fit, and I have the vision on, yes, I can be a great physician. I can bring something to the medical field that no one else can. I have that uniqueness about who I am. So that's my spiel on personal statements. Once again, if you want examples on personal statements, shoot me an email and I'll send you those examples. There's 7 good examples and 1 bad example, but it shows you different ways that those look like. And I'm more than happy to answer any other questions anybody has before we wrap up.
All right, it looks like nobody has a question. I do want to thank you for that analogy. I think we've all seen the movie, and that was a pretty good way to put it.
Have you ever cried when you watched the movie?
Cody,
Every time.
every time.
Every time.
See, I was going to ask you if you can give us a little preview of the song, but you did that without me asking. So
I got a little bit into it.
you're just ahead of the game. Oh, no questions.
Yeah. And I'll throw you another analogy out there, since we're talking Disney. Another good one is Lion King. And like I said, a lot of students, when they come to me about their personal statement, they feel defeated. They feel like this is the hardest thing they've had to do. It's more difficult than that OChem exam that you had to take. It's so hard. And I love to say, I don't know if I've ever actually said this to a student, but I love to think this, and maybe I should say it, that when Simba is looking in the clouds and thinking he has failed, and Mufasa says, "You are more than what you've become." And I almost want to say that. I'm like, you've done all these amazing things. You are more than what you think you really are. And so sometimes you just have to get yourself out of that mindset that, oh my gosh, I am not a good candidate for medical school. I haven't done anything. You need to look back at all those experiences that you have and realize you actually are more than what you think you've become, I should say. Because I think you guys are, a lot of you put in so much hard work. And I remember when I first became a pre-med advisor and I went to a pre-med seminar kind of thing to kind of know what I needed to do to help our pre-med students. And I came walking away from that being like, wow, there's so much expected of a pre-med student. And a lot of you are on par doing this day in, day out, the studying, the community service, the shadowing, all these different things that are expected of you. You're doing it, and you're doing it really well. Like I'm always impressed when I ask students and they come into my office, tell me what you've done. What are your experiences? And you start rattling them off. And I just think, man, I don't know how I'd fit that in to my schedule when I was an undergrad. And I'm in awe. And so think about that. Yeah, you guys are more than sometimes what you actually think you are. Reflect on those experiences and really build that confidence in who you are as a prospective medical student.
Awesome. On behalf of every pre-med student that this school will ever see, thank you. You're amazing. I know you've given us a lot of tips, and I feel like anybody can walk away from this video and just bust out the most amazing personal statement. But how would you suggest that one starts it? I know that was my question for several months, and I know a lot of people have the same question. So go for it.
So my biggest thing, starting a personal statement, you just want to start putting things on paper. Sometimes that is the hardest thing, is getting over that roadblock. Because sometimes you're even like thinking, oh, this was a great experience, but you don't write it down, right? And then when you go back to think about that, you're not in that motion, right? We've all been there. That writer's block to start a paper is the worst thing ever. So just write something down. My suggestion, a lot of students like to start off a personal statement with that motivation, with a personal experience that happened. Think of a personal experience that happened and write that down. Get yourself in the motions of writing something down. And then just start listing off, what characteristics you think you have. What things have you done that you can reference in this personal statement? Give yourself something to work off of. Even if you just throw something on a paper and then go talk to a friend, myself, one of your favorite professors, and say, hey, I'm working on my personal statement. I kind of have some things down, but I'm not exactly sure where to go with it. There's so many times a student has given me a draft, and I've been able to look at that and be able to pick out certain things and say, all right, I like what you're saying here, but it feels like you're missing something. And I ask them like, oh yeah, this, and this. And I say, yeah, write that down. That's fabulous. So sometimes you may need someone to help you to kind of move through it, but they can only help you if you have some type of draft, some type of basic information. And don't feel bad if you have a bad draft, because if you have a bad draft and you let someone see it, they can at least say, you know what, you really need to, maybe emphasize more here, or I don't really think this is working for you, but maybe something else. Otherwise, sometimes you sit on that bad draft for so long, by the time you actually let someone look at it, maybe you don't have enough time to really get it to where it needs to be. So don't feel I would say about 70% of the drafts that come to me need work. And once again, it's all about that idea of, it's really hard to write about yourself, to be humble and to say these, to overcome that humbleness and say these good things about yourself and show that confidence. Every once in a while, you get someone like Ryan Gibb, who's an English major, who gives you a personal statement. You're like, yeah, you're good. You're good. Have fun. You're fine. Right. That happens very rarely. That's, like I said, that's maybe 10% of the students that come to me. I give them very minimal comments and be like, just shine this up a little bit. You're good. Most students need some help organizing that. And that doesn't say anything bad on you. That just says that you are searching for ways to make this personal statement be an accurate reflection of who you are and how you're going to be a good candidate for medical school and eventually a physician. So just put something on a piece of paper, Colton, whatever it is.
I'm just I came to you with the question before, and you gave me some advice, so I know that should be part of the video regarding personal statements.
Perfect. And be vulnerable. Feel free to be vulnerable. Like sometimes those personal, that motivation, what got you to where you're at, sometimes it's a very personal thing. Be vulnerable. Feel free to do that. And what you'll find, even if you don't use that exact experience, I've had students, they wrote like a whole like thing that's like almost a whole page and a half about an experience that they had, and it didn't say why they wanted to go to medical school. So I said, okay, this is great. Let's bring this to maybe half a page, and let's put in some of this other stuff so that people know that you're going to be a good physician. One other thing I will say on that, sometimes you guys have experiences, but the experiences don't happen to you. They happen to somebody close to you, or somebody you love, or somebody you know. And sometimes you get caught up telling their experience. So make sure if there's something that's big that's happened, that you're relating how you dealt with that experience, and not saying, oh, my sister this, my sister that, my sister, because then that personal statement is like, is this a personal statement for you, or a biography that you're writing for your, or biography you're writing for your sister, right? So you can talk about something that maybe happened to a sibling, and it was something that was horrifically medically, and maybe your sister has cystic fibrosis, and you saw how they struggled. Well, you need to share how that struggle affected you. Maybe you had to help them with certain things. Maybe you saw, how their different life affected how you wanted to help other people. Make sure that it's a personal statement about you, because a lot of the times those personal stories are about something that's happened to somebody else. But make sure you incorporate yourself in that story, because this is your personal statement.
Awesome. Any other questions? Kelton, you have any? I know you already killed the MCAT, so now let's figure out what you need to do the rest.
I don't have any questions. Doug nailed
Come on.
it. He did good.
I think so too. He always does.
Really quick, when it comes to interview stuff, I was talking to Hannah today. We're looking to set something up pretty big for with the help of Utah Health Scholars. They had a really great idea. One of the new directors there worked for the University of Nevada, Reno Medical School. And she's talking about some of the MMIs that they did. And she's talking about bringing in like actors and stuff like that. So we're going to try to put something together. And my hope is this semester. If not, it'll be the very first part of the fall semester, so that people can get practice before they start actually getting interviews. But I really think some of the things she had to say, I think it's going to be really awesome. And I think we're going to have some opportunities to really do a really good experience for interview. So for right now, most of you, I want you to focus on personal statements, experiences, MCAT prep, all that application stuff. If we do get to doing interviews at the end of the spring, that'll be great. If not, like I said, definitely the beginning of fall, and that it will be more important for you to focus on interview stuff after you focus on this stuff, for sure.
Get the interview first.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I don't think we have any other questions. I do regarding specific DPMA stuff, so not anything that should be on this video.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks everybody for coming. And if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch. We appreciate you.